New Orleans is a very important part of United States history.
New Orleans is a place that is going to continue to grow and prosper as a community.
New Orleans is just so much more interesting than most places.
The Historic New Orleans Collection is a museum and research center and a publisher. Everything we do is all about the history and culture of New Orleans and the region around it. It was established by two individuals who were collectors, Kemper Williams and his wife Leela Williams.
They were passionate preservationists of New Orleans architecture and history and philanthropists in their community here.
Their collecting started well before the foundation was ever created, although we set our start date to 1966 when they created the name Historic New Orleans Collection.
The original collection of buildings were purchased in 1938. These buildings all work together to form a network of spaces that are interconnected, that the public can visit to see our museum exhibitions, attend our programs, and where we also have offices for our staff.
When the general was planning his estate, he actually wrote in his will that this house and all of the property that they owned in the French Quarter be preserved to document not only the architecture of the French Quarter, but the way people lived here in the French Quarter.
We have a collection that's over 1.1 million items. We have a room in history galleries that talks about the War of 1812 and most specifically the Battle of New Orleans.
The Louisiana Purchase documents are extremely important because they are one of a set of 3 that were signed in New Orleans at the time of the Louisiana Purchase.
This is a set of documents that laid out what the Louisiana Purchase was going to be.
Other important items are the earliest map that shows this area. The handwritten Constitution of Louisiana in French. They also range from pre-colonial periods here in Louisiana to modern day.
Some people see us as a museum, but there's many folks who see us as a research center. And it's not just the volume of material that we have, but it's the accessibility of the material that we have as well. You don't have to make an appointment, you can just come on in. And that really separates us, I think, from other research center, library type of institutions.
We're very proud of the fact that our museum is free and open to the public. It's important for us to be free because so many of the people who visit us are walking down the street and they see us and they're like, oh, let's go check that out. We have to have an important impact on the tourist experience in the French Quarter because that is so much of what the French Quarter is used for. But our ultimate goal is to have an impact on the lives of people who call New Orleans home. And being free is equally critical to that because we don't want an admission fee to be a barrier to access.
Every single thing we do is about education. Who cares about the collections unless you can see them, use them, understand what they mean? Who cares about the buildings unless you are learning something when you see them and experience them? Education is the bottom line.
Since we shot that video 3 years ago here at the Historic New Orleans Collection, we've grown a lot. We've built a whole new exhibition facility, which we opened to the public in 2019, just 1 year after our city celebrated its tricentennial in 2018. The project, the exhibition center, is a molding of old and new. It's the restoration of a building originally built in 1816, as well as a brand new construction, a contemporary building that you see behind me that we call our tricentennial wing, in honor of that momentous occasion in our city's history as we look back on our first 300 years. Local history is world history. And the stories of the people of New Orleans and the people who lived here before there even was a New Orleans, these are stories of world history. And an institution like ours that collects materials related to a certain place in the world has stories to tell that are relevant to people from anywhere and everywhere. The next video features another great melding of old and new. Poetry from the 19th century, written here in New Orleans, and a contemporary response from today. Both poems, the one from over 150 years ago and the one from just a couple months ago, feature the voices of Black New Orleanians, expressing their voices of activism. So please enjoy this reading of a poem from our publication, Afro-Creole Poetry, and a reading of a contemporary poem written in response to it by New Orleans poet Kelly Harris DeBerry.
In Civil War-era New Orleans, Afro-Creole newspapers run by free people of color published conversations hidden in French-language poems. Poets wrote back and forth to each other about civil rights, current events, friendship, and love. In 2020, the historic New Orleans collection published Afro-Creole poetry in French to bring these conversations back to life in the original French and in English translations by Clint Bruce. New Orleans poets were invited to choose one of these 19th century poems and write their own 21st century responses. 8 novembre 1864. Le triomphe des opprimés. Pourquoi vouloir troubler notre terre bénie? Pourquoi tant d'intérêt à la race avilie du nègre qui, pour nous, fertilise our fields? To us, to our children belong his labor's yields. As long as an animal receives its feed, has not the law of nature been satisfied? Such are their wicked appeals. But a more humane voice by the oppressors is heard, crippling both the whip and the chain with this word. These black Africans whom you have cursed, these slaves subdued and condemned by you to the worst, are they not also God's wondrous works of art, and men, your equals, endowed with noble heart? Brothers were ye at first, and when they finally heard that sacred voice, the sons of the downtrodden race did make the choice to answer the call as cheerful volunteers to vanquish their oppressors or die as soldiers, having paid the price of blood, of bitter tears over the cherished remembrance of husbands and brothers. Indeed, you'll have won the right to equity and your proper rank among humanity. Neither chain nor auction, shattered by your swords, shall ever return to attempt to crush your innards, ye sons of liberty.
We are the holy ones, baptized in a sea of last breaths and bones. The ocean is a lover, but men strike like thunder, casting nets over the living. They come wicked, traveling like snakes. We know the venom, the sound of hiss chasing our flesh, our backs bent like rainbows over indigo, chopping sugarcane, chained to evil imaginations. But we are the holy ones, tending to earth's brutal harvest. We are the stripes of blood of glorious flags, paraded for slaughter in old fields and new plantations. Don't you hear the weeping, pulling back history's skin? We have no remedy in this land. What is the color of free? What is the color of human? We are the holy ones, weeping at the altar of our dead, turning over children like soil. How far must our moans float down river? When will death bring good news and eat the master's soul? We want the afterlife and all the seats of heaven. We are the holy ones. Flowers returned as fire, the impossible gold conjured back from our ancient home and bodies. We are the holy ones, sweet darkness gathering, a lightning rod over evil's head. Don't you smell the ash of freedom rising? Don't you smell the ashes of freedom rising? Don't you smell freedom rising, rising, rising? Rising, rising, rising.